Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, once again, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And I will be doing the program by myself today, as my good friend Mike, well, he's dealing with some technical difficulties over there in Florida. Gators and all seem to have chomped away at the internet lines, but that's okay because I'm here. Don't worry. There is plenty of news and fun stuff to talk about. But the great part is that you guys are here. So as long as you're here, we can communicate, we can converse. Just do us a favor. Just drop a message in however you're watching the program. If you're watching us live, all you got to do is just drop something in there and a message in there, and I'll be kind of checking it from time to time. And then we'll let the folks know what you think, not just what I think. But we'll give them an opportunity to hear what you have to say as well. Now, before we get into today's program, let's make sure that we give a shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start off with our good friends over at Hitman Industries. That's Hitman Industries. If you've bought a barrel in the last 5 to 7 years, chances are you already have one of their barrels. I mean, if you already bought an AR, chances are you already have one of their barrels. But if you haven't, you know what? Can't think of a better time for you to do it than now. Trust me, they have pistol barrels, they have rifle barrels, whatever you're looking for, they have it there. So do them a favor, do yourself a favor. All you got to do is go to hitmanindustries.net. That's hitmanindustries.net, and go and look and see. And I promise, you'll see some stuff there that you like. Also, the California Republican Assembly, as I like to call them, the Republican wing of the Republican Party here in the state of California. For those of you who are enjoying the idea that we now have a Republican majority in the House of Representatives, that is in no small part to the work done by conservatives like the California Republican Assembly here in the state of California, also working very hard to take over school boards as well. So, folks, these are the folks who are not just getting people who have an R after their name, but supporting people who support the very same values that we support, you folks as supporters and viewers of this program. So check them out. If you're in the state of California, please become a member. If you're not in the state of California, I'll bet you know someone who is. Share the link to their website, cragop.org. That's cragop.org. Share that link with them and encourage them to become members. Folks, it's really inexpensive. $35 a year. That's all it takes to become a member of CRA. So go ahead and do that. Also want to encourage you, please go to hogholsters.com. It's hogholsters.com. The best concealed carry holsters out there, custom made. They have, no matter what firearm or what setup you have, trust me, they've got a holster for you. All you got to do is go to hogholsters.com, find the holster that you want, the configuration that you're looking for, and when you check it out, make sure you type in the rundown in all caps. That's your discount code. Make sure you get your discount. And finally, I want to encourage you to please visit, that was easy for me to say, uscombatgear.com. It's uscombatgear.com. The owners of this company, once again, it's veteran-owned, veteran-operated. Whatever you are looking for in terms of tactical gear, whether you're looking for eyewear, whether you're looking for helmets, whether you're looking for vests, whether you're looking for pants, shoes, boots, whatever, they've got it there. So go there, check it out, and trust me, not only do they have quality products, but they're all at a reasonable price. Make sure you visit them at uscombatgear.com. All right, let's go ahead and get into today's news. The first story has to do with Twitter dump part 2. Twitter data dump part 2. So this time, instead of going with Matt Taibbi, Mr. Elon Musk decided he was going to allow these files to go to Barry Weiss. Now, Barry Weiss is a former New York Times columnist, and he's former for a reason, because he's a person who really wasn't interested in all the censorship that was taking place over there at the New York Times. New York Times is one of those groups that really don't want to report the news. What they would much rather do is push left-wing propaganda. Yeah, that's what their focus is there over there at the New York Times. As if you guys didn't already know. Trust me, if you pay attention to this show, you know that we know that they are all about the propaganda. That is their goal. That's exactly what they're trying to do. All right. So moving right along. So if you look down here and you go through this piece, and by the way, in case you haven't noticed, once again, this piece is over there at the Hill, so you can actually go and read it all for yourself. Largely, what they were talking about in this particular piece had to do with blacklists, right? In other words, these are the lists of people who are being pushed there over at Twitter, and the whole goal behind it was to make sure that their information didn't get out. Now, these weren't necessarily the people who were. They weren't necessarily saying, okay, well, we're going to take your account, but they were basically making sure that their accounts weren't amplified. Folks like Dan Bongino, folks like Charlie Kirk, who's the head of Turning Point USA, which, by the way, is doing a phenomenal job of motivating, getting young people involved in the conservative movement. But here's the thing. So the way in which they do these things is, as you know, you don't just get random tweets. In other words, it's not just random what comes across your feed. What happens is that if a tweet is getting a lot of traction, if a lot of people are paying attention to it, they amplify it, right? And so if they amplify it, well, then guess what? More people, it changes the chance of it showing up in your feed, because, you know, if you're like some people, you got a ton of people that you're following, it changes the chances in which it will show up in your feed. There's also the trending list. So in other words, you see the hashtags or that are always up there that are showing up. They will make sure that tweets from these folks' website, from these folks' Twitter pages were not showing up. They weren't trending. So once again, the idea is to tamp down. In other words, make sure that information coming from these sources are not reaching as many people. Now, Twitter's not alone in doing this. When we were first starting off doing Morning Coffee with Craig with the Firearms Policy Coalition, we were watching as our numbers were skyrocketing as we were doing the live feed there. And then all of a sudden, they just tanked. And even still to this day, whether it's doing the rundown or it's doing Coffee with Craig, or if I'm doing one of my other programs, there are a number of people who I know follow me and I know follow the program. They tell me, yeah, I don't get the alerts when your show goes off, right? And I'm not saying I'm asking them or I'm even telling them about the program. They're just volunteering. They say, hey, why don't I get these alerts anymore? And that, once again, is because it's being tamped down. They are being what's the word I'm looking for? They are going out of their way to make sure that these folks do not have access. They don't have the ability to see, or they reduce the ability of individuals, of people who are just open and looking and interested in seeing stuff. Yeah, they're making sure that you guys don't get a chance to see it. So anyway, if you want to go, you want to check those out. I'm sure that those are go there. The article is over at the Hill, but I think they also have here a link. They also have there on that thing, they have a link to the Twitter thread. And you know what I think Elon Musk is trying to do with this? Now keep in mind, neither Matt Taibbi nor Barry Weiss are conservatives, right? These are guys who have traditionally been writing. They are very either down the middle or to the left, right? Depending on whatever the issue is. But they've always had intellectual integrity. They've always been honest. They've always put all the information out there. So these are guys who he's recognized have integrity in the media. So he didn't want to just dump it all out there because it's probably a bunch of stuff. He wanted people to be able to go through it, people to be able to analyze it and put it in proper order and context. And that's what these folks are doing. And trust me, as Republicans are looking to take over the House of Representatives, in particular, because a lot of this was the result of visits from the Biden administration, because a lot of this is coordination with Democrat campaigns. That's where a lot of this concern is, because even if let me clarify. Even if it's a campaign, then you're talking about affecting an election. But if you start talking about working with a government entity, meaning working with a legislative committee, or working with a department within the U.S. government, now you're talking about the violation. You're talking about free speech violation by proxy. In other words, the government coordinating with a private entity to to take away the free speech rights of individuals. Before I get on to my next topic, I want to reach out to a buddy of mine, good friend from Juan Crespi. All right, Juan Crespi, by the way, Chris Williams. By the way, it's no longer Juan Crespi. They don't even call it, I forget what they call it, but they don't even call it Juan Crespi anymore. But that was the junior high school. By the way, they don't even call them junior high schools anymore, do they? The middle school that we went to. So making a long lost connection. Chris, thank you so much for tuning in to the program and for commenting. Do us a favor, let us know what you think, if there's any other things you'd like to share, about your thoughts on what's going on. All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. For those of you who have been in prayer and vigil for Brittany Grimes, the WNBA star who was arrested and sent to a Russian penal or gulag there in Russia for possessing vape canisters that had marijuana in them. She has been released. You know that she was traded for a arms dealer, a Russian arms dealer named Victor Bout. Let's just say that there are some concerns. And by the way, he is, at one point, he's basically, they considered him to be one of the, if not the most dangerous man in the world. Subject of a character, or at least had a character modeled out, or not modeled after him. His character was portrayed. He was portrayed by a character in the movie Lord of War. But this is a very bad guy who sells all kinds of weapons to very bad people. And these weapons have been used to kill American servicemen. This guy was released for a basketball star who didn't want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, who said there should be no national anthem. But anyway, that's who she was released for. That's who he was released for. Anyway, the Pentagon now is stating that they are highly concerned. They're highly concerned because, they're afraid he's going to start selling arms again. Yeah, you don't lose those contacts just because you've been in prison, right? Once again, this guy was in prison for a reason. It wasn't just because he was, selling trinkets. It wasn't because he was defrauding anybody. Just a minor fraud or anything like that. This individual was selling dangerous arms, weapons to our enemies. And so therefore he was serving a 25-year sentence. Now, interestingly, it's been brought up that, a lot of the conversation about this particular trade was about him and was about both Brittany Griner and the former Marine. He was now a security executive for a U.S. company who was also in jail for quote unquote espionage. But we all know, I won't say we all know. Our intelligence agencies and our government are telling us that it was all fraud, that he is not guilty or did not do anything. Okay, we'll take their word. But I'm thinking, so any discussions were about those two being released in exchange for him. And they said, nope, not willing to do it. Not willing to do it at all. In fact, they're saying the only deal, they had at one time offered to do a direct switch for those two, right? But the U.S. government said no. And now they're saying, we'll only do it for Brittany Griner. We won't do it for both of them. And so that's what wanted to happen. And they're basically saying, that's the best deal that we could get. So in other words, what they're saying is, by the way, just because it's the best deal that you can get doesn't mean that it's a good deal, right? If someone tries to sell me a Yugo for $10,000 and it's the only car that's available, right? Doesn't mean that Yugo is worth $10,000. In fact, you and I both know it's probably worth about $10. Even though now it's not quite old enough to be a classic, but you and I both know, it ain't worth all that money. And in this particular case, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to allow someone that the Pentagon, right, our military leaders believe is letting a guy who we know, chances are he's going to go back and he's going to start selling arms to our enemies. Is that the sort of, do we really want to trade him for a pot-smoking WNBA, for a pot-smoking basketball player? And by the way, I'm not saying that it wasn't trumped up. I'm not saying that she should have been in jail or sentenced for as long as she should have. Most definitely not. This has nothing to do with whether or not she should have been locked up or should have been sentenced to go to a gulag. That's not what this has nothing to do with that. This has to do with, was this a good deal? Was this a deal that made sense? Did we get like for like? And I think it's very easy to look at this solution or look at the outcome of this and say, no, we did not. America got hosed again. And by the way, that seems to be the way in which it goes for, whenever a Democrat is doing deals like this. Look at Bo Bergdahl, right? Here's a guy who was a deserter, and we traded him for some enemy combatants who went right back out onto the battlefield, right? They went right back out onto the battlefield, and so we traded someone who we knew. We traded someone we knew was a traitor, who we knew. What's the word I'm looking for? We knew he left his post, right? Abandoned his post. That's the word I'm looking for. We know he abandoned his post, right? And we know he abandoned his post and left people vulnerable. He put people at risk. There were people who got injured looking for him, thinking that he had gotten taken, right? Servicemen got injured. They put their lives on the line to try and find him. And turns out, once again, he had just wandered off because, he wasn't down with doing that anymore. Anyway, so yeah, liberals tend to have a history of making bad deals when it comes to stuff like this. And it is once again it is a very, very bad deal for the United States, bad deal for national security. But that's kind of how Democrats roll. All right, moving right along. There was a big announcement today, and that is that it has to do with prisons and prison closings here in California. Now, the state of California has recently closed 3 prisons, right? Now, the reason that they're citing that they are closing these prisons is because, well, we've got less people we have less inmates, right? We have less people who are committing crimes, fewer people who are winding up in jail. Well, folks, there's a little bit of a problem with that. See, what they fail to mention in this is that the state of California is experiencing a major spike in crime. Its crime had already been going up prior to COVID. Had already been inching up because of our smart on crime policies, the ones that were initiated originally by our current vice president, former senator, and once attorney general here in the state of California. And when I say smart on crime, I basically mean we're going to decriminalize crime. We're going to take dangerous criminals and we're going to send them to the county jails, right? And then we're going to take the criminals that are in the county jails and we're going to let them back out on the street. So what's happening here is, no one's wondering where are all these criminals going? Well, let me tell you where they're going. Here's what's happening. So first thing they're doing is they're taking crimes that were felonies and they're turning them into misdemeanors. And then they're taking the people who are convicted of those crimes, whether they are violent or not. Some of them they're releasing into the streets because of COVID and, because there are certain crimes like witness intimidation or threatening a witness, things like certain forms of domestic violence, certain forms of arson. There are a lot of things, quite frankly, that to you and I, when you hear the crime, you would think, well, that's a violent crime, but not to the leadership of the state of California, the California legislature, or our governor, Gavin Mussolini. No, it's not considered violent to them, but I digress. So anyway, they send them to county prisons now, or county jails. And there's a difference. if you are sentenced to more than a year, right, you're going to go to a prison. A prison is built, number one, it's built for long-term stays. There are things like rehabilitation programs and things like that, things that can help prepare an inmate for life after prison. These folks, a lot of them, a whole bunch of them, are being sent to county jails. County jails are meant for under a year. They're not meant for long-term. They're not meant for things like rehabilitation. They don't have the facilities nor the personnel to handle these dangerous criminals. And so what you're also seeing the exact same thing happen there. You're seeing a lot of criminals being let out on the streets. So now criminals are being let out on the streets. And you've also got, at the same time, you've got George Soros funded district attorneys who've decided that, yeah, we're not going to we're going to decriminalize crime. In other words, we're not going to enforce the law. Chesa Boudin, great example. You've got George Gascon right down there in Los Angeles. Wonderful example. Who've decided, yeah, no, we're not going to enforce the law. Meaning that if someone comes into your store or in your place of business or does something and steals something, if they damage your property, we're not going to arrest them. They are not going to go to jail. So, or at least if they get arrested, they're just going to get released. We're not even going to require any bail or anything. We're just going to release them. So now you have officers who are like, look, if I arrest them, if someone commits a crime, the store owner, property owner, the individual calls the police. The police then arrest them. They take them in, and they, by the way, they're putting their physical well-being, their lives, and even their careers in jeopardy by doing these arrests. So they do these arrests. The DAs then just let them go. So guess what? The cops stop doing the arrests. So if they're going to stop doing the arrests, then guess what the people who are doing the crime, people who are suffering from the crimes are doing? Nothing. They're not calling the police anymore. So now they're saying, well, we're seeing a decrease in a lot of these crimes. Well, you're seeing a decrease because people have stopped calling it in because they won't get arrested. And if they do get arrested, they're just going to get released. And they're just going to get released because there's no room in the county jails. And there's no room in the county jails because the governor and the legislature are shutting down all of the prisons. But yet, and there have been 2 articles in the Sacramento Bee on this particular topic, right? 2 articles talking about the prisons. And not once has the reporter, in this case, Lindsay Holden, asked the question, well, where are all the prisoners going? What's happening? If crime is spiking in the state of California, where are all the criminals? What's happening to them? She didn't think to ask it. Well, let me clarify. If she did think to ask it, she sure as hell didn't write it. She didn't write anything about it. She didn't write about the answer to it. And I'll tell you where the criminals are. They're on the streets. They're victimizing the citizenry. By the way, the citizens who voted for these morons. So just so y'all know, that's what's going down. And I'm talking about it because it's pissing me off. And those of you who are not in the state of California, you just let California be a cautionary tale for you. All right. We saw crime go down dramatically for more than 20 years. Why did we see it go down? Because we had harsh penalties for criminals. You commit a violent crime, if you are a habitual criminal, you will do time. Period. And guess what? People got the message that while California, much like any other business, California was not business friendly for criminals. Well, guess what? If there is one area where California is now business friendly, yeah, it's criminal business, baby. You want to do the crime? Come to California because you sure as heck will not do the time. The state of affairs. Okay. Our next topic has to do with, vaccine mandate in Hollywood. Did you guys know this? I did not know that there was still a vaccine mandate for actors and actresses there in Hollywood. And Fran Dresser, who is the head of SAG-AFTRA, which is the actors union, is still concerned because there's still a vaccine mandate, meaning you still are restricted having to wear masks and things like that. If you are an actor and are not vaccinated. Now, here's what's crazy about this. And this is why I think this is one that's going to wind up eventually getting shut down. Because we know that the vaccine doesn't protect you from getting COVID. You can still get COVID. It doesn't protect you from spreading COVID. You can still spread COVID. What it does do is reduce the likelihood that you will wind up seriously ill or in the hospital. There's significant evidence that that is in fact the case. But that's not what allows you to make it a mandate. They can't mandate that you do it because it is good for you. You get to make that decision. And yet the folks in Hollywood don't want you to make that decision. The folks in Hollywood do not believe in my body, my choice. They believe their body, their choice. Here's a statement that she had to say. She said, "I continue to fight on behalf of our members who feel discriminated against because of the COVID unvaccinated or unboosted status, which is keeping them from working in major studio productions." She writes, it says, "For those members not being fairly considered by studios with regards to their religious or health exemptions, the help is on the way." And I guess one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure to point this out is because a lot of these folks, it really is they're concerned for their health. And if you are young, in particular, if you are a young male, it has been known, these vaccines have been known in young males to potentially have cause cardiac issues, right? Now, it's rare. It is very rare, but it's been known to happen in healthy young men. But the other thing that they don't tell you is, in particular, if you're really young, like if you're a teenager or in your 20s, the percentage chance of you having a serious reaction to COVID is about the same as you having a serious reaction to the vaccine. I'm sorry, but you should have the opportunity to make a choice about that. I mean, we're no longer the pandemic is over, according to the President of the United States, so they should not still be mandating stuff like this. Anyway, that's just me. That's just my perspective. But anyway, so in Hollywood, they're still pushing the vaccine mandate. Big surprise. All right, now time for us to move on to our parting shots for the day. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Hosters. Just go to hoghosters.com. Make sure you identify your hoster that you're looking for and use the discount code, The Rundown. All caps, no space. All caps, no space. That's The Rundown. Get your discount right there at Hog Hosters. All right. Our first two are kind of in line with the comments, some of the stuff that we're talking about today. Folks, you never, ever want to be known for releasing, you never want to give in to you never want to negotiate with terrorists. And here's the reason why. And I think this meme kind of points out the reason why this particular exchange with Russia was a bad idea. This is a breaking exclusive, a meme King news. Like in other news, El Chapo is waiting on an American athlete to mess up in Mexico. Let's be clear. I don't think they're waiting. Do not be surprised if they're going to make sure that an athlete messes up, whether they actually messed up or not. Now, this next one really kind of falls in line with that one, but as well as another story. This one, it's got a picture of Biden laughing. This one, by the way, is from the National Rifle Association. It's got a picture of Brittany Griner, as well as Mr. Victor Bowden. It says Biden pushes gun control, releases convicted arms dealer in prison swap, all in the same day. And by the way, that is true. Yes, he has advocated for the release of a known arms dealer, while at the same time trying to push gun control. Kind of the same way that President Obama pushed fast and was pushing for gun control. At the same time, he was selling firearms to the Mexican drug cartel. And yes, he did that. It was called Fast and Furious. No, it's not propaganda. If you're a left-winger and you're watching this program, you say it didn't happen. Trust me, it happened. Or you can just look it up. Just look it up. And then finally, and this one is, once again, I'm telling all my folks here from the state of California, the state of California is actually in the process of deciding exactly what reparations to be paid by the state of California will look like to go to black Californians who are the descendants of former slaves. Now, for those of you who are unaware, the state of California was never a slave state. We never had slavery in the state of California, which then begs the question. And in this particular meme, you've got the state of California. And then you've got a family, a white family, and then you've got a young lady who is of African-American descent. And there's an arrow pointing at the state, and it says, a state that never allowed slaves, and then it's got an arrow pointing to the Caucasian family. It says, is taking money from people who never owned slaves, and then an arrow pointing to the picture of the young African-American woman saying, to give to people who never were slaves. I think that kind of sums it up. I think that kind of sums it all up right there. I don't know what else to tell you, folks, but I think that kind of does it. In any case, that's going to be it for today. Very much appreciate you guys tuning in. Oh, wait, before we go, once again, shout out to our sponsors. Please make sure to visit the folks over at Hitman Industries. It's Hitman Industries, great place to go and get your rifle and pistol barrels, hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly. Ronald Reagan referred to them as the conscience of the Republican Party. Check them out at cragop.org. Hog Holsters. Find them at hogholsters.com. Make sure to use the discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces. And finally, if you're looking for a tactical gear, make sure to go to ustacticalgear.com. All right, now is the time for us to tune out. We want to thank you guys for tuning in, for supporting us. We want to thank you for liking and sharing the program and sharing us with your friends. We will be back on Monday, fun day, gun day with a lot of fun, and we'll be back with Mikey as well. Anyway, you guys take care. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.